Welcome to another Intuitive Tea Time. Hopefully, you've brewed yourself a cup of something to settle in and listen to us yammer on about whatever the topic is today, which is conspiracy theories. So, I've seen it tossed around out there. I mean, I guess you can connect it to type, but I have seen the INFJ, the INTJ, as being accused of falling for conspiracy theories. But I find it very interesting when someone wants to insult someone else, they'll accuse them of being a conspiracy theorist. Almost meant as an insult. Well, it is, I think it's always meant as an insult, never as a compliment. Would I consider myself a conspiracy theorist? Well, yes, if it means am I willing to entertain or be open-minded to a lot of possibilities and scenarios, then yes, I guess you could call me a conspiracy theorist.
I think there's a lack of logic in people who
Yes.
accuse people of being a conspiracy theorist.
I think there's a fear.
Yeah, that's it.
And now, what are they afraid of? Are they afraid of being more open-minded? Like, what is the fear exactly?
I think in their head, they don't want to be wrong in some way. For instance, right, people will believe something just because, and they will never question anything. And then anyone who says anything that's different to that, contradicts it or something, then they'd be a conspiracy theorist.
Yes.
They never really verified anything or even thought about it. Like they never applied their brain to the thing that they've just accepted because everyone just says it. Like this happens a lot with random facts.
Right.
Sometimes they get spread around, and I mean facts as in quote unquote, right?
Yes.
So see if I can think of some. There's so many misconceptions, facts, and they're kind of true, but Chinese whispers or whatever. It's like where they go in the line, don't they? And then they pass at the end.
No, we call it telephone.
The first person has the fact, for anyone that isn't following.
Yeah, this is a fun game to play, right? When
Yeah,
you
the
sit in a
first person's
circle.
got Oh, in a circle?
Oh,
we used
boy,
to do it in a line.
Boy, there are some cultural differences here.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe we have sat. I feel like it was more in a circle. I guess it depends, or I don't know.
I think a line's more sophisticated, really, don't you?
Okay, so the first person whispers something in someone's ear, and then it gets repeated down the line, and then the last person has to say it out loud.
Yeah, so for instance, it would be the fact is...
I went to the store to buy peanut butter for my Uncle John.
Right, and then at the end it would be Uncle John smothered himself with peanut butter and fell down the stairs.
Yes. And it's shocking, isn't it? How fast it gets twisted. Yes.
Yeah. That happens with facts all the time. It's silly, really, because I can't think of any example particularly. When people always come up to you and they say, did you know that, and it's this run-of-the-mill fact that just goes around, but it's false. It's not even real. It's not even right.
Well, I can think of some that I got fed as a kid. We were told that eating snow would give you meningitis.
Right.
I mean, we would be out there, eating snow because it was exciting. It was cold. It was icy. And then our parents would say, no, you can't eat snow. You'll get meningitis from that.
And they believed it genuinely.
They genuinely believed it. Or that if a bat got into your house, it would get in your hair.
A bat?
In your head? Yeah. I remember one time we were in a cabin and my grandmother was with us and a bat got into the cabin and she was grabbing the blankets and throwing them over all of our heads because presumably the bat was going to fly into our hair and get all messed up and tangled up in it.
Every time you sleep, apparently in your lifetime, X amount, and it changes, obviously, X amount of spiders crawl into your mouth.
Yes.
And then, to think about that, a lot of people will be like, yeah, that's why I always sleep with my head in the pillow or whatever.
Yes.
But when you think about it, how do people know that? And why does the spider that usually, tries to escape you crawl into your mouth to die? It makes no sense.
Well, and that's also not taking into account how many people sleep with their mouth closed. Some people sleep with their mouths open,
And
but it's
how
like,
do they come up with this? Like, do
I
they
don't,
film someone and
yeah,
then, like,
right,
over their
sleeping,
lifetime and then
and
say,
then just
right, yeah,
averaged it
no
out.
one called in. That's 27. Like that.
But people actually believe this stuff. But yet, when I would say, question something in, let's say, the medical establishment or whatever, then I'm the crazy conspiracy theorist. So there's some kind of unwillingness there where certain things are acceptable because they've been repeated enough, I guess.
Yeah. Another one. This is a good one. So people will say, the Second World War, the German people or the Japanese people, they do it for both. They were just so indoctrinated. They were propagandized to such a degree that they genuinely saw, the enemies as like
Mm-hmm.
not human or whatever second class citizen people in Germany. Isn't that terrible? Like a whole nation, like or
Yeah.
two whole nations. Can you believe it? They're saying that. Yes, on one hand, one man or the leaders of them countries in the Second World War, they can indoctrinate the entire nation to being on their side, right? But that couldn't possibly be the case now.
Right.
That's conspiracy.
Yeah.
But like, if it can happen once, who's to say that we're not propagandized now?
No, that's not possible.
I mean, you can't rule it out, though, can you?
I know. Well, certain people can.
Another one is that people like universally agree with is, oh yes, it's the victors of the war that write history. Like, that's another one that's just taken for
Yeah.
granted. But then you would say, if we're propagandized now, you can't rule that out. Then they'd be like, well, that's just a conspiracy theory. Propagandized now? We live in democracy, and democracy is like the best thing ever. Don't you know that? Yeah, but what if that was propaganda? No, you conspiracy theorist, how dare you?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, everyone in every
Well,
time lives under
it's
some kind of propaganda, surely.
exactly. And it's almost like a how dare you think? How dare you think for yourself?
How dare
Like
you
there's this,
question anything?
yeah, there's this great suspicion from some people towards people who do want to think for themselves. We've seen it on YouTube. YouTube believes that you can't think for yourself because if someone makes a video about certain topics that YouTube has decided that you can't think for yourself for, they put a little thing up underneath. So if you speak about the pandemic, they'll have the real facts about the pandemic underneath. If
Yeah,
you speak about climate change or global warming, they'll have the real facts underneath. I even saw a video the other day where someone was speaking about a particular individual from a certain family, and there was the little context thing underneath about this individual. Like you have to know the proper context according to us. You
yeah.
can't look it up for yourself or you can't develop your own thoughts for yourself.
It's amazing how people wouldn't find that suspicious.
Disturbing. Find it disturbing, personally. But there are a lot of people out there who would agree that YouTube should do that. They should tell you how to think because you think wrong.
I mean, I would say, why is it necessary? If it's right, anyway. Like, why can't we be trusted to think for ourselves? On one hand, the sort of taken for granted thing is what democracy's great. People vote, that's a beautiful thing. We are self-determining our future. Democracy's great. Yeah. And then they say, well, you can't think for yourself. You got to have this little message to say how you should think. If we live in the democracy, then surely we should be allowed to think how we want. We shouldn't be told how to think. So is us thinking for ourselves and voting and what we think our opinion valid or
Hmm.
not? It doesn't make any sense.
No. I think what I can't understand, and again, this will paint me as a conspiracy theorist by the wrong people, the right people, however you look at it, whatever side you stand on. I get why certain people wouldn't want us to think for ourselves because there's something to be gained from it, right? Whether it's financial profit, control, power. I mean, you can name all these things, right? That makes sense to me because people are in it for those reasons, right? They don't want people to think for themselves. But what I don't understand are the people who aren't in it for that, the everyday man, the everyday woman who just blindly goes along with it without thinking. That's what I have a hard time with. Why don't they see this? Why is it only certain types of people are willing to be open-minded in this way and entertain many ways of thought? That doesn't mean we can't make up our minds about something. But I guess truth is truth, right? What is that thing that says, like, what does truth have to fear? If it's true, it's true. I mean, like, if you're going to stand on top
Yeah,
of a house and you're going to
it's,
drop a rock, you know it's going to fall to the ground.
or maybe that's the problem though. That perhaps they don't want you to know the rock will fall to the ground because that's useful to you in some way.
Yeah, so but why do we have everyday people who are afraid to even think about whether or not the rock will fall to the ground?
I think some people just don't like that sort of like discomfort of like,
Yes, it
what?
is.
I've been
Yes.
lied to? No, no way.
Is it that? Is it also just intellectual laziness? I think
I
that
think some
has to do with it
part of
too.
it is to
Hmm.
do with people wanna protect like the status quo.
Yes.
They're like, well, this is how it is, and you don't go around disturbing what we have here.
Yeah. What was the old expression? Don't go stirring up the hornet's nest or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And then I guess that can come from many different places, right? Just a fear of the unknown if things change. Maybe it is just a fear of
Yeah, well, in a way,
change.
like it's like the Matrix. I think a lot of people they're happy like living in society, and they know what to expect. They don't want to take the red pill like in the movie because then it's like a reality that they'd rather not believe in. They'd have the blue pill and be like, oh, okay, let's live in a simulation, and the simulation is more artificially comfortable. So in a way, to think outside the box, you are stirring the hornet's nest
Hmm.
in a way that exposes it and then makes everyone else not have the choice of whether they have a blue pill or a red pill. You're coming along and like revealing the curtain, and then like the Wizard of Oz guys in the booth, and it's all like a joke, and people would rather believe the lie.
I think to some degree or another, most of us, we tend to blue pill ourselves in one way or the other. So it can be with what we see in the world. It can be what we see internally, right? I know I've certainly blue pilled myself in that way. You want to believe a lie about yourself, so you'll blue pill yourself. So I think we all, as human beings, have a tendency to do this in one way or the other. Some people kind of do it with their environment, right?
Right.
Whether it's the inner or the outer environment, meaning their self-awareness, their awareness of what's out there in the world. Because I do think it stems from being uncomfortable in one way or another.
I think a lot of people do it personally too.
Yeah.
When they're caught doing something wrong, then they're like, no, I didn't. I didn't just kick that dog. I'm a good person. Did you kick the dog? No, I didn't.
Oh, we see this with kids, right? You lied. Oh, no, I didn't. They'll stand in the face of an obvious lie and continue to
Yes.
say they didn't lie.
Yeah, because they don't want to live with the consequences. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily the consequences, but they don't want to live with the feeling of
Right.
they actually did do it. So like they
Yes.
self-delude themselves, like, no, I didn't. I didn't do a bad thing.
Yes. So do you, people who are listening, have you been called a conspiracy theorist? Do you consider yourself a conspiracy theorist? What are your thoughts about this? Have you been called one, Chris? Personally, have you been called a conspiracy theorist?
Probably.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I have. I think I have. Yeah. Mostly for me, it's in the area of, I would just say health and well-being, probably, because I don't tend to go along with the status quo. I think there's more to it than meets the eye. And I think when I have asserted that thought with people I know, it doesn't always, it's not met well. So I guess they would just just paint me as this conspiracy theorist because,
I mean, you certainly get carried away with it. But it's not the point we're making. It's like,
No, the
at
point,
the end of the
right.
day, you should be able to question things.
Right.
That's the thing, and that's what I think
Yep.
our types do. We do question stuff. We don't just take it for granted. I think most INFJ or INTJ experiences, when, we hear about, like, I mean, I remember learning about World War II or whatever, and thinking, like, goodness, how did that work? How can, surely, like, all these people can't just, like, think it's okay to just kill people en masse, whatever. How does someone indoctrinate everyone? That doesn't work. Like, find another example. I can't imagine, like, David Cameron or whatever, like, indoctrinating the entirety of Britain. It would never happen. No one cares about what he says. Or any prime minister. Like, what makes this guy so special? That's kind of what I thought. How can someone be that good?
Yeah, I think we just question what everyone else accepts. We have too many questions about it.
More than to meet the eye, basically,
Yeah.
with these things.
And I don't think it's just intuitive people, because I know of sensing types who are very much willing to question what they say. I don't know that it's necessarily a type thing. Maybe certain types are more willing to ask certain types of questions, but I think it has to do more with just a willingness to think. I mean, I've known several ISTPs who definitely are not don't accept status quo. They question things.
Yeah, ISFPs too,
Yes.
for sure.
So it's not something that an intuitive or sensor can lay exclusive claim to, I think. I think it goes much deeper than that.
There's like bad guys in history, and they're like Genghis Khan is meant to be like the most awful person, and then Napoleon was like the most awful person after that.
Right.
There's loads of them. Attila, they're like the bad guys, and you're not meant to conceive of them in any other way other than like they go around chopping people's heads off and shooting them in catapults. Oh, what's the other guy? Vlad the Impaler. That's
Yes.
another one. But there's like, you look at history and like there's a lot more than sort of like the generic going factors about him, right? It's like Vlad the Impaler. They don't tell you like his country of birth was like basically always in a war, and like the Ottomans were always invading and they impaled them first and then he impaled them better. you know.
Shh, be quiet with those facts over there. We don't want to hear
It's
those
true though,
facts.
it's like,
Mhm.
sorry, but there's not just one arsehole. Everyone's an arsehole.
Right.
Tends to be how it works, isn't it?
Yes.
It's understandable that like Napoleon is just mocked. They say he was like really short, but I don't think that's actually true. He wasn't really short.
Well, look what we throw around now as an insult, right? Some man goes around, oh, he's got a Napoleon complex, right?
Right.
It's an insult. And it's a
Yeah.
smear towards Napoleon.
I think he was like 5'7", but like back then, like the average guy was like 5'1". That's what they don't tell you. It's like he was actually a giant.
There you go again with those facts. Stop speaking sense. We don't want to hear that.
Yeah, so I mean, at the time, Napoleon was thinking outside the box. You have to realise, in Europe, every country was a monarchy at the time. So he came along and basically wanted a republic and owned everyone. And of course, the entire like monarchist world end up shitting themselves. And that's why he's the worst guy in history, basically.
Right.
Because they didn't want that. They didn't want republics. They didn't want democracy, right? So on one hand, we've stuck in time, we mock Napoleon, but then in the same way, we then go on about democracy and how great democracy is. But then, like, Napoleon was making the French Republic, and they were like anti-democratic. How can we say that Napoleon's a really bad guy, but then also democracy's great? Like, how can we hold these two things at the same time when they basically contradict each other?
Well, we don't think about it. That's how we can do it. That's
Yeah.
the answer. I mean, it takes a lot of work, to be honest, to dig up all the lies, but really to question everything you've been taught. It takes a lot of work to do that, even from a personal standpoint. If you think about whatever situation you came from as a child, it's called conditioning. It takes a lot of work to dig through all that and find out what was really true in all that, what wasn't, what serves me, what doesn't serve me. It's the same thing with what you're talking about. I mean, for the average person, if they've gone through an educational system and they've been told this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing, well, then, that's a lot of stuff to start to dig through, So I guess it kind of has to fall along your lines of interest, what you're interested in. Maybe start there.
Julius Caesar, right?
Yes.
He's like a massive hero and like, wow, most influential man in history. That's quite easy to argue, right? But then the guy invaded Gaul, right? It's like France and a lot of Northern Europe. He killed like 1 million people and then like enslaved millions of other people. And that's meant to be a hero. It doesn't make any sense. Caesar's a hero. Napoleon's a bad guy. It doesn't make any sense. Caesar wrote from his own perspective. He wrote his own thing saying like, and then Caesar went into Gaul and conquered it and he was brilliant.
In the
and
third person.
We just
yes.
sort of like, we take that for granted. Well, Caesar says he was brilliant, so it must be true. What was he really like? So, what do you think? Is Caesar a bad guy? Is it kind of circumstantial? Slavery was kind of a thing. Can you judge people by a modern standard, essentially, is what I'm saying. And what about Napoleon? Is he a good guy or a bad guy? I don't know. I mean, you can't determine these things, really. Unless you're there, it's kind of hard. Different accounts, different biases.
But again,
your teacher's bias when you're taught. There's so much stuff.
But to bring this full circle, you have to have a willingness to entertain the thought that perhaps what you've been taught was wrong or misguided or whatever.
Yeah, in a sense, I think maybe some particular sensor types, it might be quite disconcerting.
Yes.
To find out like this, my special power of sensing and being great at sensing isn't a special power because what I perceive as reality is a lie, or is likely to be a lie. So what would they base, their thoughts and determinations on if that was to be proven to be true? A bit more troubling to them than most, maybe.
Well, and I think too, it's not just that, but it's paired with certain types, this strong nostalgia for the adults in their young lives that told them these things. Therefore, it's very difficult to question it because of that.
Yeah. A lot of people do certainly get stuck in their ways, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to change, and this is the correct way. We carve into stone. How ridiculous. What is this paper stuff?